Tomato. Okay. We're back.
We're back.
Fucking. How long's it been? It's been over. We're coming up on like 2 months.
It's been almost 2 months. That is correct. 2 months, and we are back. Episode 18 of the Flag to Flag podcast. We appreciate you for tuning in. I'm in a slightly different location. This is my desk, not my rig, which you see. Well, you may not be able to see it. To my left is my lovely rig. But I'm at my desk today with this lovely mic. That is just beautiful. And Chad is back with nobody behind him now. I don't get to wave to anybody.
Yeah,
his roommate is gone.
I was back in Nashville for about a little over a month, and while I was gone, my roommate moved out, and I come back and I'm like, hey, I'm back, and he's just not here. I'm like, oh, okay, so room to myself for at least 6 weeks. So we'll see what happens after that.
That means 6 weeks of me waving to nobody in the background. That's sad. I was wanting to have some like side characters come into the podcast, but guess where?
Hold on. We might have a side character, but this time on your end. You have a special guest sitting right next to you.
Yeah, but she's working. She's doing it. she's busy. My fiance, obviously, to the right of me right now. Hi. Mm-hmm. I can see you looking at me as we're recording. Hello. So we are, let's get to the subject of this. We're way into a couple seasons of, we got NASCAR going on. We got Formula One, we got IndyCar, the big three, all back up and running.
Yeah.
We're in week 7 of NASCAR.
We were on track to cover the Daytona 500, and then if you're okay with me kind of sharing, I won't go into too much detail, but so I was in Florida for a week for the U.S. Legend Cars International and INX Winter Nationals event with Michael Crafton. You've heard him; he's made an appearance once or twice, and we won the championship in the semi-pro division, so that was very exciting. And then I unfortunately got a phone call a few days after that my father had Jim Barker had passed away. So that's that's really been the big thing. So I was back in Nashville running around doing a bunch of stuff, but I'm back in Ohio, and I took inspiration from you, John, because when I was at your house, I noticed a photo. If you're watching us on Spotify or YouTube, you see that magnificent pedestal behind him, and at the very top, it's kind of...
That's generous to say magnificent.
But at the very top, you can't really see it. There is a framed photo, not the big one of him next to Jeff Gordon. Still baffles me why you have a framed photo next to Jeff Gordon.
Have you seen all these Jeff Gordon cars?
You have the entire section of it. But I took inspiration. So from the NASCAR Hall of Fame, almost a year ago, I got me and Dad. So
there we go.
Yeah. If it wasn't for my dad, I would not be in the position I am today with my career. But so that was really the big reason. So we tried to film a few times. There was but I mean, I didn't know what I was doing the next hour while I was back home. Like everything was so up in the air. And then I think it was either Sophia or both of y'all got sick.
Yeah, like the last couple weeks, and which didn't play out very well. Yeah, because I was sick.
We went to Top Golf, so
we did go to Top Golf. Learned recently that my shot is absolutely shit.
It's better than mine.
Yes, but I went golfing recently on Saturday or on Friday with a good friend of mine, and he golfs very regularly. Has custom clubs, and basically is like, yeah, your shot's garbage. Like, we need to fix that. So I was 2.5 hours into a golf lesson essentially last Friday, and just ripped apart my shot. So as much as my shot looked great on in some of the videos, I've seen you road rage. I want to see you on the golf course. I feel like that'd be something. Well, no clubs were flying around. I tell you that right now. I did not release or hit anybody with a golf club.
I can't say the same.
I didn't hit anybody with a bumper. Talking about that Xfinity Series driver. throwing the bumper at.
Oh shoot! Yeah, that did bro. I am still coming back to earth with everything, but yeah. But let's dive right into it.
Yeah, let's go IndyCar first.
IndyCar. We've had 2 races, 1 points paying race so far. Before we get into St. Petersburg, let's jump ahead a little bit. What was your opinions on what they called the $1 Million Challenge?
Right.
Which I didn't know until the end of the race. The winner only got $500,000.
Right.
And I guess $1 Million Challenge just rolls off the tongue better. But
a little bit.
Yeah. But what were your thoughts on the event?
I mean, it's a cool event. I thought it was unique. I think it's definitely something that you see in all sports. I mean, motorsports has kind of adopted this late. Well, besides NASCAR's always had some sort of money-paying non-points race. Now, obviously, we have the All-Star race. But I think it's cool. I think every sport should have a All-Star race format, and some sorts that's points paying or non-regulation or it doesn't affect any of the season at all. I think it's cool. I think it should have been moved. I don't think it should be race number 2 because now we have to wait, a little bit longer to even get another IndyCar race. I think definitely keep it. I love the format. I think the track, should rotate. So I don't think going to the Thermal Club should be the spot every year. I think it'd be cool to get multiple markets involved in this. So it's every year it's different. I think it's a good concept. I think the race was good. Oh, yeah. I think you saw obviously the best of the best, perform in it. But I think, with year 1, obviously there's going to be some opinions about the Thermal Club, and obviously the track it's a beautiful track. I think they should just alternate it, and since they're in the beginning stages of this, they can do that. Go to a street circuit, go to an oval, go to Daytona road course. I mean, something
that
wild,
would be something.
Yeah, so really kind of mix it up. I love the idea. I think it needs to be moved in late in the season or mid-season break. Typically, like what you see within some other sports, it's not the second race of the week or second race of the season technically, because now we have to wait. Until the 28th. A full
21st.
month.
Yeah, 21st. I just looked. It's
the 21st. Yeah, 21st. Yeah, not the 28th. When we go to Long Beach there. So it's definitely a good race. I like it a lot.
But I agree. It's a cool race. There's a few things personally I would change. I mean, this is one, I feel like Thermal Club is almost a little bit too big of a circuit. At least when they it's like the Thermal Club is like 3 different tracks and they have like this one big combined track, and that's what they ran on. And I feel like that's a little bit much. Something like maybe Barber Motorsports or Oregon or something like, or go to a track that we haven't been to yet. Like you said, maybe somewhere like Watkins Glen, Sonoma, somewhere they haven't been in a while. Maybe Daytona Road Course. I mean, they might be playing with a little bit of fire there, but. You never.
That'd
really
be pretty
know.
crazy. Open wheel cars at Daytona. That just sounds badass.
That would be something. But I think real quick, right before we get into St. Petersburg, we had some pretty big news come out. I tried to find when exactly it came out. I couldn't find exactly when, but it was in the past couple months. Here it is. February 14th. February 14th, it was announced that the IndyCar Championship will not take place in downtown Nashville.
Yeah.
Instead,
I forget we're having to cover like a lot of news that we haven't talked about.
There's news and stuff as well, it's this is a fantastic, this is a reliable source for your racing information right here. All right, it'll be about 2 months late, but you'll get it.
It definly happened. We could tell you for sure it happened.
So it's no longer going to take place downtown. It's now going to take place on the 1.33 concrete tri-oval that is Nashville Super Speedway. Now, I am both for and against this, and here's kind of why. And I'm not, so one, I love that we have a racetrack in Nashville, that's kind of always been my big thing. I've been very big, with the National Fairgrounds on the NASCAR side, but I've also been very thankful that we at least have a NASCAR track in Nashville. But I don't feel like it produces the best racing out there at times, mainly with it being a concrete surface, the concrete. If it's somewhere like Dover, that's one thing. Dover produces fantastic racing, which is where they're headed this weekend in NASCAR. But I don't know how it's going to be for IndyCar because this is a concrete oval. We don't see this.
Yeah.
All right. Like on ovals, we have, it's going to be interesting, but I feel like a good way, it throws a wrench into the mix as well. All right. Because now we've got, our standard ovals that we go to, like Iowa.
Right.
But now we have two other different factors. We have a flat mile-long track. Like that's going to be that's going to be interesting. Now we have a concrete oval. So that's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be interesting. I was really looking forward for it to be downtown because when the race came along, it was going to be in September. I was going to be 21. And I wanted to be on top.
That's true.
I wanted to be on top of a honky tonk and watching it, and I feel like that'd have been fun. But I still feel like it'll be a fantastic event. I believe the last time it was held on an oval was it was at Auto Club, but let's see here. 2014 was the last time the IndyCar Series Championship was held on an oval. It was 2014 at Auto Club Speedway in Fontana, Florida.
Gotcha.
So there is that. And you got anything you want to say? What do you think about it?
I think it's really neat that we're going to see that at Nashville because it's going to be a change in what they were planning on strategizing their season around. It'd be different if it was going to a different road course or a street circuit like the Nashville street circuit, but going from a street circuit to an oval really suits quite a few drivers very well. I mean, look at Scott Dixon, but also look at Joseph Newgarden. If he wasn't a championship favorite now or before, he is now. He's the king of ovals. Just dominates everywhere he goes. And the fact that he won won the very first points paying race of the season, it's hard to beat Newgarden at ovals. And I think them going to that track at that particular time, that could lock him up a close championship bid. I mean, we've seen the IndyCars race here basically during a 7 to 8 year period between 2001, 2008. Scott Dixon won the last three. But I think it's cool that it's back. It's going to definitely change how the structure of the season and how the strategy goes, which I think is really kind of interesting. Because everybody was looking forward to the streets of downtown, but obviously the Titans had different plans. They are building that new multi-billion-dollar stadium that only seats 60,000 people. That's a totally different topic. But I think it's going to be a good race. I think it's going to be cool to see the Indy cars there. I think it's still going to produce. Now, I'm very curious what's going to happen with the other series that run alongside. They do have a road course built into into Nashville Super Speedway, but it's a very symmetrical road course. It's basically this. If you look at the map, it's very much the same once you get to the first half of the course to the second half.
Yeah.
It basically mirrors itself. It flips.
Yeah.
And so you could see some of those cars out there, the GT3 America Series, the Trans Am. You could see that. I don't know if we are going to see that, though, because of the fact that Nashville is moving that date. So
if it were me, what I would do, if I was in charge of all this, I would say, hey, let's yes, we have to move it to Nashville. Let's keep all the same series.
Yeah.
Let's not just throw a wrench into the IndyCar, but let's throw a wrench into everything. And because here's the thing, like, oval racing is a completely different dynamic. All right. You can race a lot closer with each other, and mistakes are not as forgiving as they are on road courses, like that when NASCAR was racing at COTA, I was talking to a friend who primarily watches IndyCar, and they were just like, why aren't they abiding by the track limits in some spots? And I'm like, well, in NASCAR, the track limits are the walls. So, it's that's kind of the big thing. But yeah. I think you're right. I think it will be interesting. Obviously this is still kind of fresh, still yet to hear anything. I mean, we were getting ready to start buying tickets for the Grand Prix, and now this entire shift. And so, so that's going to be really interesting. I'm actually kind of excited for it. It's a little bit of a longer drive for me out there, but it is what it is. It don't matter.
Still a good race. I think it's still going to be a good race, and it definitely suits the championship leader, Joseph Newgarden, that I mentioned before.
Yeah,
won the first race of the season, and was dominant. I mean, one of the best cars out there, and currently leads Pato Award, Scott McLaughlin, Will Power, Colton Herta, Palou, Rosenquist, Rossi, Dixon, and Rinus VK, your top 10 of the standings right now. So what I'm very curious about, though, is if you look a little bit further into the actual racing itself, Alex Palou did win the $1 Million Challenge. He's sitting there back in 6th. So, you gotta think about, Palou, he's so skilled a little bit further back than typically we see him on a race-to-race basis. But I think, Palou winning that $1 Million Challenge is going to give him some momentum going into Long Beach, and then going into some of the other races that we're going to see down the line. But we still have 3 weeks, 19 days until that Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach. Yeah. So quite a bit of ways. But right now, Newgarden, our favorite driver, leading the way as he should.
Yeah, it's good to see. Real quick before we kind of move on to our next thing, while I was in Nashville, I finally got the opportunity to go to the Lionel store. And it was the weirdest thing. There were I was looking for 2 specific drivers, and coincidentally, they were the 2 who weren't there.
Yeah.
But of all people, they didn't have Josh Berry from Hendersonville, Tennessee, or Joseph Newgarden from Nashville. Like, you have the 2 Nashville guys. Like, I think you went there and you asked about it, actually.
Yeah, I asked about it. And basically what they are trying to do is certain stores get certain drivers. And it's almost like, if you want to consider like reverse psychology in a way, if they send all the Newgarden or all the Berry stuff to Nashville and they know that Nashvillians are going to buy it, nobody else across the country can get it. And so they're going kind of the reverse thought is everybody in Nashville knows about Newgarden, knows about Berry. If they want to buy it, great. But if you're not outside of those, outside of the Middle Tennessee area, that's probably a big reason and a big demographic of Berry and Newgarden's fans.
Yeah.
They want to make sure that different markets are getting the most popular drivers, which Newgarden is by far right now in the IndyCar series this season. So a little bit of a strategy there, but they got to have something, because I would buy one, if not the big, I guess technically 118s, the 143s or the 164s, but they do have them. But yeah, if you haven't already, go check out the Lionel store in Nashville. It's one of the best. There's a guy there with glasses and long hair. His name's Paul. He's a pretty cool guy. He'll hook you up with whatever you need. No, this is not sponsored by Lionel.
John's already got a guy. He's just like, hey, do you have like, hey, do you know where I can get like this year car and everything? And John's like, I know a guy.
Oh, speaking of this year's cars.
Oh gosh.
I did pick up a unraced. This hasn't been raced yet. Chase Elliott Hooters paint scheme. Right here, 2024, has not been raced this season as of when I bought it.
Wow.
Yep. So it has a really nice pearl set finish on it. It's very cool. Very.
Do you know when it's gonna race?
No, I have no clue. Okay.
Okay.
I have no clue.
But yeah. Well, You got anything more for IndyCar? I mean, it was
not
really that much. I mean, we've had that. Wait. Well, we'll wait a little while longer before we do our predictions for that one.
Oh yeah, we have plenty of time.
Yeah,
we have plenty of time for that. Yeah. So let's move on to the second most raced series, Formula One. So started off with as everybody predicted on March 2nd with the Bahrain Grand Prix. Verstappen, max points there, got the pole, got the fastest lap, won the race. So max points for Max. Max points for I believe Red Bull too. I think it was a one. I can't remember. It was.
I'll look real quick. Max points for Red Bull.
Yeah,
and might be for both. I think it was for both Bahrain and Saudi Arabia. I don't know if he got the fastest lap.
Yeah. I think it was not quite max points. Leclerc got the fastest lap in Saudi Arabia, but right now, based off of what we've seen, Red Bull is still fast. Red Bull is still the class of the field. Max Verstappen is still beating drivers by multiple seconds. But with that being said, the gap is closed. The gap is closed pretty nicely to where it's not 15 and 20 second gaps. It's 5 to 10 second gaps, maybe 15. So
we're going to go to our next segment. We're going to go to our next installment of our What John Text Chat in the Middle of the Night.
So really quick, Bahrain won by Verstappen. Saudi Arabia won by Verstappen. But in Australia, Chad, I texted you. I texted you.
At 12:10 a.m., Sunday, March 24th. I think I was actually already back here at school. Or I was in Columbus. I was staying with family in Columbus. I wake up and all I see on my phone is 2 text messages, all caps. Verstappen is out. Verstappen is out. First thing I do is I pull up the replay, or I pull up the highlights. And there were talks at the start of the year that there was a chance that for the first time in Formula One history, a driver was going to win every single race. And unfortunately, it looked like to be a real possibility. But as here in these text messages, just watch the highlights. That was a good one. I think I called you and I said, I just watched the highlights, and you said Sophia's still asleep. I was like, okay. But But yeah, so I mean, let's look at the point standings here after Australia.
True, and really quick, I do want to clarify.
Go ahead.
Verstappen did win by 22 seconds in Bahrain and did win by 13 seconds in Saudi Arabia. I believe the gap's closer than that, though. I believe the gap is much. What just happened? What just happened?
I don't know.
I just see next thing I hear it's and then your headphones are off. And then Sainz and Leclerc separated by 2.3 seconds. But so the gap is still there, but I think it's a little bit more than it's perceived. I think it is more like around the 10-second mark. But go ahead, let's look at the point standings.
Well, before we get to the point, I'm going to piggyback off of something you just said there. Sainz and Leclerc, Ferrari. Let's look at Ferrari real quick, okay? Now, you being a Ferrari fan, you're probably pretty happy with the race result. There you go. See, already got it. But there's something I kind of wanted to talk about. And there were similar discussions happening when Valtteri Bottas left Mercedes, or got booted from Mercedes and went to Alfa Romeo, or I call it the Green Jolly Rancher car. But
Sauber.
Kick Sauber, or whatever it is. But there were talks that maybe Mercedes fired the wrong driver. Now, I've said it time and time again, numbers don't lie, stats don't lie. Love them or hate them. You can have your opinion, but statistically, Lewis Hamilton is the best Formula One driver ever. Statistically, he is. He's still hunting for that 8th championship. most wins out of everyone. I'm pretty sure most poles and most podiums. But I mean, it's statistically that's there. But now the conversation is coming back up in Ferrari. This year so far, I mean, Sainz is out for blood.
True.
He is, and he still doesn't know where he's going to go. There's I think you told me there are 11 seats opening up at the end of the year.
Yeah, there's
11. Over half the grid is opening up at the end of the year, including a seat at Mercedes,
right?
A seat at Red Bull.
Maybe 2 seats at Red Bull, if you know what I'm talking about.
2 seats at Red Bull, maybe.
Right.
All right, and plus a whirlwind of others.
Yeah.
So it's going to be really, really interesting to see how this plays out in the coming weeks. But what are your thoughts? I mean, do you think Ferrari is getting rid of the wrong driver, or do you think Carlos Sainz is just angry and trying to prove a point?
I think Carlos is angry, even though he is behind in Charles in the point standings right now by 7 points. I do think Carlos is trying to buy himself a seat. I think he's trying to race himself into next season and say, hey, I'm still a driver that can still perform well. Could we see him and Max be teammates? Very well. Could we see him and George be teammates? I think so. Do I think Ferrari let go of the wrong driver? If we are going purely off of the last 2 seasons, including the first 3 races of this race, if we're going off of 2023 and the first 3 races, statistically, yes, because Carlos Sainz has won 2. Charles Leclerc hasn't won any. Now, I'm a much heavier Charles Leclerc fan versus Carlos Sainz, so I'm going to have a little bit of a bias there. But I think when you're looking at the 2 drivers and you're looking at the age difference, when you're looking at, Carlos is 3 years older than Charles. I think Ferrari has found the driver they want to go with long term, which is Charles, and Carlos is a little bit over their peak of, that, and when it over the peak of, I won't say performing well, but he definitely has the performance to do it. Now, with Lewis Hamilton coming into Ferrari, Lewis Hamilton is going to Ferrari for one reason: to win a championship.
Yes.
That's the only reason. Yes. And Ferrari has been the only person to battle, or the only team to battle Red Bull the last, really, if you want to consider by race wins, the only drivers that have won races in the last year in 3 races have been Red Bull and Ferrari. So if you want to go to a winning team, wins. Yeah.
But let's look at the performance, okay? Because let's look at the podium. Let's look at the top 5s, the top 10s here, or the top 5s here. Who else is up there too?
Yeah, you have McLaren, you have Mercedes.
McLaren, Mercedes, all right? Because, there's about... Look, on any given race weekend, first and second place, you kind of have a good feeling for it's going to be Red Bull. But then there are 3 teams there who it's a toss-up.
Yeah.
It really is, You've got Ferrari, you got Mercedes, you got McLaren, all right? Now, so far, let me look back at the point standings here. Yeah. So far, looking at, driver standings.
This year it's been Red Bull, Ferrari has been the second best team.
Yes,
I'd argue that.
So far, but then we don't see a Mercedes driver until 7th, and that's George Russell. Lewis Hamilton is currently sitting 10th right now.
Yeah.
All right. Now, Aston Martin's dipping their toes in the water here a little bit as well. Then again, we saw that. But then again, what happened last year? All right. Aston Martin was looking to be a force to reckon with. McLaren wasn't even in the picture. At the end of the year, McLaren was the force to reckon with, and Aston Martin kind of fell off the face of the earth, And so what are we going to see? All right. Are we going to see, because that's the big thing, is very rarely do we see a team that came along like the 8 years we saw with Mercedes, and what we're seeing here currently with Red Bull is the constant domination.
Right.
All right. Now, what are we going to see? Yes, we're seeing some pretty good stuff out of Ferrari right now. what's going to happen in the second half of the year? You just mentioned earlier that Ferrari is coming out with updates around the same time that Red Bull is coming up with. What's going to happen there? Last time those two teams came out with major updates at the same time, it worked in Ferrari's favor at Singapore. So it's going to be interesting to see the way that plays out. I feel like, yeah, I mean, we're gonna have to wait and see how the season goes, but I would be very, very, very surprised if Carlos Sainz does not have a seat next year.
He'll have a seat. I mean, my prediction is he'll go to Mercedes. Red Bull, it depends on how Checo does. If he doesn't perform, you're looking at Sainz potentially going to Red Bull, which would be a great seat for him. I think he'd do very well in the equipment. I think Sainz is better than Sergio from a purely skill perspective at the current moment. Plus, Sergio is much older, like 4 years. But still, I think Carlos knows his time is coming. And if he is able to get that Red Bull seat, watch out. I think it's either going to be Red Bull or Mercedes. I don't think he would go any lower than that.
Maybe not, and but you kind of said, something right there where comparing Carlos Sainz to Sergio Perez, he's got the better skill. That's kind of the hard part with Formula One. In IndyCar and NASCAR, it's kind of easier to compare skills because with those two series being spec series, with with Formula One being an open series, it's hard. All right. I've had a lot of people we hear a lot of people dog people like Logan Sargent and a bunch of other guys saying they're bad drivers and all this other stuff. Well, let's put them in a car that can perform well and see what happens.
Right. Exactly.
All right. Like I hate to say it, yes, going back to what I said earlier with Lewis Hamilton, has an incredible rap sheet. But at the same time, he had a damn good car too.
Right. Exactly.
All right? And we saw this, and with Formula One, 9 times out of 10, the best car wins the race. You don't see that. We saw the other night in NASCAR, neither one of the two cars that would be considered the best car didn't win the race.
Right.
All right.
Exactly.
We saw it at Bristol. All right. Yeah. At Bristol, Ty Gibbs had the car to beat. But at the end of the day, experience beat the best car with Denny Hamlin. So
yeah,
there was that. And you can so I think it's hard. I'm gonna make a chart or something kind of on a Google Excel sheet or Google Sheet thing, and with all like the drivers and stuff, and just kind of keep track of all this, because I think it's gonna be really interesting to see who ends up where.
Yeah. For sure. Year. Yeah, I think it's interesting because, looking at really quick on Perez and Sainz in Bahrain, Perez finished second, Sainz finished third. You got to remember, Sainz was out of the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix that then came back and won the Australian Grand Prix where Perez finished fifth. So by races run and average finish, Sainz has the upper leg. And arguably, if you were to throw in Carlos Sainz's name where Ollie Behrman's was, and Behrman finished P7, and arguably a race where Sainz would more than likely have gotten more points, Behrman got 6. So if you're considering the Carlos Sainz car, he has 46 points right now if you consider Behrman's. And then you have Sergio Perez with 46 points, so they'd be tied for third in the Drivers' Championship right now, one behind his teammate, Charles Leclerc. So you have to consider that as well within the mix of things.
46 points.
The car has 46 points. Now, Carlos on his own has 20 every single race on average.
Oh, okay. I was about to say, I just looked at it. It said 40.
Yeah, but, so on average, he's averaging 20 points per race.
Speaking of points, can we look at the points standings real quick?
You
got into it a little bit earlier. Like, I don't want to get my hopes up, because I got my hopes up when I saw this last year.
Yeah.
And Verstappen walked away with it. But, I mean, look. So we have Verstappen leading right now with 51 points. In second place, only 4 points behind, Charles Leclerc, followed by 1 point behind Sergio Perez, 6 points behind Carlos Sainz.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Now, who I think is going to win the Drivers' Championship? It's a safe bet to say Verstappen. The Constructors' Championship might see something. I'm going to look at the Constructors' standings. I want to look at the Constructors' standings real quick. Let's see here.
It's the same. I think it's 97 to 93.
97 to 90. 4-point difference.
Yeah.
That's going to be interesting to see how that changes throughout the coming races.
Yeah, and what that tells me is, I mean, you have it's just going to be a battle between the two teams. I think right now, I mean, if you look at the constructors, it's clear. You could see who is, I mean, it's by, 20, 30 points?
Yeah.
No, take that back, by 38 points. You have Ferrari over McLaren, and then 42 points. Red Bull over McLaren. Mercedes barely on the board with Aston Martin there. So, you have the top two teams are what I would anticipate being the top two teams, and Ferrari is the closest one at the current moment to battling Max. And that obviously Max has a DNF in that. So you could argue Max has averaging 26 points per race, 25 and a half to Carlos's 20. I think it's going to be up for grabs though. But this weekend, let's talk about this weekend. Yeah. We got Japan, got the Japanese Grand Prix in Suzuka.
I will not be watching.
I will be watching. I love the Japanese Grand Prix. Love the track.
It's a great race. It's a great track. I'm not waking up at midnight. All right.
Is it midnight? Let's see. What's the schedule like? Hold on.
It is going to be. So, for my time, this is Eastern United States time. You're in Central United States time.
Oh yeah, it's at midnight.
Yeah, it is right at midnight on April 7th, which I have to be up early that day to be at. I actually have to be at a racetrack that day. So, yeah. So,
well, we got Japan. Looking at last year's race, Max and Sergio. Let's see, where is Japan? Verstappen. Oddly enough, think about this. Sainz won the race prior to Japan, and Max went on to win the rest of the races that season. Looking at last season, you had Verstappen, Norris, Piastri, Leclerc, Hamilton, your top five. So could McLaren have a leg up?
You have
19 seconds, so there's that. But you could see McLaren, get back up on the double podium. Verstappen, we see this in NASCAR. Cautions breed cautions, but can issues breed issues in Formula One? We know that Red Bull went to a different power unit changed that.
Yeah, we saw it last year at the Australian Grand Prix. Last year's Australian Grand Prix, where the cautions bred cautions, and so it's going to be interesting. But yeah, you want to go ahead and give your picks. Who do you think is on our podium for this race?
Give me Verstappen. Give me Verstappen. Give me Leclerc. Give me Norris.
Norris is going to step up. Okay.
I think Verstappen, Leclerc, Norris. In a biased world, I'd say Leclerc wins. In a realistic world where Max is angry and he wants to go out and win by 30 seconds, he's probably going to win by 30 seconds. I think it's going to be that order. So Verstappen, Leclerc, Norris.
I'm gonna have I feel like I'm kind of similar. Obviously, give me Verstappen up top. I'm gonna say Verstappen, second place Sainz, third place Perez.
Okay. So double podium for Red Bull. Yeah,
double podium for Red Bull. But I think it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be a Carlos Sainz sandwich with the Red Bulls. I think Verstappen's going to be angry with what happened in Australia, and he's going to want that redemption. But I feel like that Carlos Sainz is the type of guy who he can really move off of momentum. This win, beautiful for team morale, great for all of them. So I think it's going to be like, hey, let's keep chasing this feeling, let's keep chasing this, and let's try and be there at the end of the year. So
I got you.
I see a decent result for Ferrari in general, But yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think I think when it comes to Verstappen, he's the top. I got Leclerc second. I got Norris third. I've signs. I want him to be up there, so it's tough. But with McLaren's speed last year, I think that he'll have Sainz will have a tough time knowing that the McLarens are doing well at this track, and plus, track position does matter. You do have a couple passing zones, but definitely I'm going to stick with my top three. I think Verstappen's going to bring home the win by like 16 seconds. That's my guess. Who knows? I mean, he could win by 40 at this point. But so that's what we got going on. That race is going on at 12 o'clock in the morning. So 12 a.m. Central Time, 1 a.m. Eastern Time, 10 p.m. Pacific. All the time zones for everybody out that way. So moving on from Formula One, let's talk about the series that is now going on their 7th week. Oh, we have a pause.
Before we go there, we have something that we haven't done, which is my favorite segment. Local Racing Report.
Local Racing Report. Go ahead.
We are headed to Dominion Raceway in Virginia. I will probably be there a few times this year, but we had the late model stock division as well as 2 legend car divisions, being the Pro and Master division and the Young Lions and Semi-Pro divisions. In the Legends Pro and Master division, we had some legend car big names such as Landon McKenzie, Kevin Nowak, and of course Jacob Staten. But yeah, your top 3 for the Legends Pro Masters division. Started 6th, came home 3rd, and the number 18 machine is Miles Murray. Started 3rd, came home 2nd is David Pelez, and picking up your feature win, started 2nd, number 39, Jacob Staten. In the Legends Young Lions Semi-Pro division, we had some really big names, such as we had Hunter Jordan, we had Ben Morabito, Nick Morabito, a little bit of brother action going on there, as well as Landon McKenzie as well, making an appearance in this race, Kai Johnson. But biggest name we saw out there, of course, was Keelan Harvick. So your top 3 started 5th, finished 3rd in the number 95 machine, Landon McKenzie. Started 2nd, came home 2nd in the number 7 J machine, Kai Johnson. And picking up the win, he started where he finished in 1st, number 8C, Connor Waddell. So congratulations to those guys. Now coming over, taking a look at the late model stock division. We had the biggest name I see out here with these guys is probably Doug Barnes Jr. in the number 88. Or if you watch YouTube at all, he is a fellow content creator. Air Doug on YouTube. So very fun guy to watch. But top 3 for this. Number 28 started Fish, finished 3rd. Wow.
He started Fish. Wow. What position?
Finished 3rd. Number 28 started 5th, finished 3rd, Dustin Storm. In the number 0 machine, started 4th, finished 2nd, Landon Pimpleton. And in the number 88 machine, started 2nd, finished in the top spot, Doug Barnes Jr. So congratulations to all of them. If you would like your local short track shouted out on the Flag to Flag podcast, email flagtoflag10@gmail.com or hit us up on any of our social media channels. Listen out for those at the end of the episode, and make sure you go out to your local short track and support your local short track. Speaking of which, this weekend, my favorite racetrack on the whole planet is going to be your first time attending the event.
Yes. That'll be fun.
There is a soccer game happening on Friday, so the event is pushed back to Sunday. National Fairgrounds Speedway. Me and John will be in attendance. I will be working, so I probably won't, but if you guys see John out there, go over, say hey, give him a hug, touch his butt, and go.
I do not consent. That is not what I agreed to. That was not in the agreement. But yeah, I'll be there. That'll be fun to watch. I got to figure out where I'm actually going to be that race. where if I'm inside the infield or if I'm in the stands, whatever Chad lets me do. Hopefully it's the infield.
Yes. Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't know. Well, I'm going to be staying at my mom's, so I can pick you up.
Okay. That works.
Yeah.
That works.
But, yeah. So now that we're done planning our event,
yeah, let's move
on to, NASCAR. So we've had a pretty good year so far with NASCAR.
Good year. It's been exciting.
Oh, without a doubt. Probably we got to witness probably John's favorite Daytona 500 ever.
Oh, well, by far. Of course.
But yeah, let's if it's cool with you, let's do a quick recap on, who's won so far this year, points paying wise.
Yep. So yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
looking at the Daytona 500, we got William Byron coming up with the win. So, obviously a good way to start for Hendrick. Good way to start. I think it's the first time in a long time Hendrick's actually won at Daytona.
The last time that the 24 won it was in 2005. I can tell you that right now.
Wow.
So almost 20 years in, let's talk about that for a second in slightly controversial fashion.
Oh, okay. Well, I was going to say
5 or 6.
20 years ago. Yeah, you would have been 5 or 6. I would have been 2.
That's weird.
I know it is
weird to think about. Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. So slightly controversial fashion. People argue the finish of that race when the caution was flown.
I do remember there being a bit of controversy. Man, my English, it's never been good. But
you're
controversy.
Controversy. Yes.
Yeah.
So
if I'm being completely honest, that was, for me, that wasn't the height of everything with me. So this Richmond race was the first NASCAR race I watched. No pun intended, from flag to flag.
See, I see what you did there.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it was
I've watched bits and pieces of others, but yeah,
for sure. So we had Byron bring home the win. In Daytona, obviously, I was elated about that. I may have cried, especially because I started my 10 to 10,000 betting challenge. So
okay, and is that still going pretty good?
I took a little. So with this last week,
did you
with
take
Hamlin
a step
winning,
back? Okay,
I took a $20 step back. I was at 350. I'm at 330. But if Truex was my lock, it hurts. It hurts. It hurts so bad, which has also fueled my recent stories on my page, Chad.
We'll get into that. I do have a quick question about all this betting and stuff. And is Sophia still sitting next to you?
Yes.
Okay. If I can you give her the heads up? I want to ask her a question. I want to see what she feels like with you putting out all these bets on sports and stuff.
She's in the middle of working, but I could ask her.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. So what's the question?
How do you feel, John, putting all these bets with not even just NASCAR, with everything?
How do you feel about
Does
me
John have a gambling problem?
In NASCAR and whatnot? Do I have a gambling problem, Chad says. Sometimes.
Sometimes you're like,
But you can admit I've done better this season than any other season to this point.
That is true. But in my opinion, she does have the right to be a little nervous because you guys have something big coming up. I shouted this out on the last podcast, but I got the invite. Already marked off on my calendar.
That's a save the date. That's not an invite.
I can hear Sophia laughing.
It's two different things, Chad. It's two different things.
So what's wait, what?
A save the date is literally to save the date. So you're putting that on your calendar to not do anything. An invite is your formal invitation, which I may not even send you.
I was about to say, I don't even know. I was about to say, I canceled shit on that day, so I better be getting a fucking invite. I'm kidding.
You'll get an invite. You'll get an invite. Don't worry.
But
so yeah, she condones it as long as I keep on winning. So she's like, wait a second.
Did she answer the other issue? Does John have a gambling problem?
Sometimes is the answer for that. Because really the amount of effort and time it takes into looking at all the data that goes into this, I have, besides this last week, I have picked every winner except for Bristol, because Bristol I wasn't even in town. I threw my two picks were Gibbs Truex and Chastain. So technically I am 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of 7.
It's not bad
this season, but so going into Atlanta, I mean, you had Suarez, which was a ridiculous win. I mean, you called me after that one. That was wild.
I watched that pirated on TikTok.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. I cannot believe I picked him to win. Then
do you want to know what that finish made me think of?
What?
The movie that got me into racing.
Oh, Cars. Oh, 100%. That was literally yes, absolutely.
I put it on my social media story. I was like, literally, like, Daniel Suarez had his tongue out over the line, but that was one of those things where I didn't care who won the race. That was a good race.
Oh, it was a great race. It was fantastic. I loved it.
That's what I've been for the past few years. I'm more watched to have it. I just want to see a good race. Yeah, there's guys I cheer for. Yeah, there's guys who I don't want to say I don't want to see win. I don't want to wish ill upon anyone. John definitely feels different about that. But we'll get into that. We will get into that. That was, but yeah, we're let's look back, get back into this. We had Bell starting off the year, a finish that no one could have predicted in Atlanta.
Yeah, Larson at Vegas. And then we saw 3 Chevrolets win in a row. Looking at trends here, you had Byron, Suarez, Larson, Chevy, and then you had Bell and Toyota dominate the short tracks, if you want to consider Phoenix a short track, and show a lot of speed.
And looking at Bell winning at Phoenix, all right, that's a win. He's locked into the championship. He's locked into the playoffs. Is that a look into the future? Is that a look into the future when we come back to Phoenix?
I think it is. Again, I think it is.
We were saying the same things about William Byron, and what happened. A guy that wasn't really on anyone's radar ended up winning the championship.
Right. So, we got to take that into consideration. And then obviously looking at Bristol, Denny Hamlin won Bristol in a race that nobody could have expected to happen the way that it did. Track was not taking in any rubber. I rewatched that race. That was a wild race where Ty Gibbs arguably is probably the best driver in the field outside of Martin Truex Jr. that hasn't won a race this season. Which could fuel this week's picks. Which could fuel this week's picks. Little precursor to that. Followed by William Byron, really dominating the late half in practice and qualifying of COTA. He's become one of the best road course racers. He is getting mentored by Max Pappas, a really, really legendary name in the road course space.
Who his son is now starting to drive legend cars. So
yeah,
there's a chance.
Watch out.
There's a chance at the National Spring Series. I don't know for sure, but the National Spring Series, which is a big event for the legend cars, just came out. It is going to be the ZMAX National Spring Series, or I think it's going to be the National Spring Series presented by Max Pappas Innovations.
There you go, MPI. So, absolutely.
MPI, I am about to make a massive purchase from that website. So,
hey, do it, dude. There you go.
I'm going to be back in sim racing here soon. That's going to be great. But
exactly.
But yeah, he's had great mentoring, like you said, with Max Pappas. The first race in a long time that, besides the stage breaks, no cautions.
No cautions, which a lot of people didn't like, but I liked it. I mean, it showed you who the best car was, who the best strategy. Like it showed you who was at the top of their game. And William Byron became the first repeat winner this season. So looking now at Richmond, our most recent race that is under, I think, more controversy than the Daytona 500, if you ask me, because of that restart.
Yeah, I watched it. When I first saw it, when it first happened, I didn't notice it. I'm going to be honest. I didn't notice it. As we watched replays and I paid attention to it, I think he rolled into the throttle a little early. I don't think he just went right before the line. Because for those who don't know, before the start-finish line, there are 2 other lines. And those 2 lines make up what is known as the restart box, where the control car, that car being the lead car, can restart the race anywhere within that box. It can be right when they hit that first white line. It can be in the middle, or it can be, but if they get to that second white line, green flag is flown. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I think he was pushing it, but I don't think he was more than 50% on the power by the time he got to the white line.
Sure.
Because if we look, I have, and I was gonna comment something, but I decided to save it for this podcast.
my latest video about what he's saying came out and said.
Yeah, I saw it, and I was like, I saw it when I was sitting in class today, and I was like, I was gonna comment something, but I decided to save it for this right here. This is what I think. I don't think you give a shit about the jumping the restart or anything. I think you just don't like Denny Hamlin. That I think is a big thing.
Yes.
I think because I want to ask you this question.
Yes.
If William Byron did the exact same, if everything was the exact same, except it was William Byron,
I would have stuck by my guns and say he jumped, because you have to. I mean, because I was talking to Sophia about this. I don't care who it is. Of course, I'm not a big fan of Denny Hamlin. I don't care who it is. Like, if you jump, you jump. I mean, I would.
That is fair.
If Byron won that race, I'd feel bad that he won, because I knew my driver won because he jumped the restart, which some people say, it doesn't give you an advantage because they were even going into turn one. No, they weren't. They were not even going into turn one.
They weren't nose to nose going into turn one. But it wasn't like he had a 1-2 car length advantage going into turn one.
But he did have an advantage.
Yes.
And I don't think it doesn't matter who it is. Give me Byron, Bowman, Busch, Logano. Like, doesn't matter to me. If you jump the start, you jump the start. I mean, like, if this was a Byron moment and this was Byron, I'd be like, well, not put an asterisk by it, but kind of put an asterisk by it.
But I don't think you would have. Okay, let me go on to the Flag to Flag podcast, or the Motorsports Enthusiast TikTok account, because that is, I think that and the YouTube, or not YouTube, Instagram is the most active. Is that are those the ones you use?
Yeah,
most?
that I would, yes, accurately, yes, that's correct.
The Motorsports Enthusiast. Okay, so 1, 2. Wait, hold on. Did you really use the jump song?
Yes.
That's funny. I'll give you that. But
yeah.
Okay, that's 2 posts about him. So it wasn't as much as I thought.
Yeah, no, it was just those 2.
I don't know. Knowing you, John, and no, I'm not going to say that actually. Knowing other people involved in this sport, they would not have been as loud or as spoken about it if their driver was in a different position.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'll fully admit it right now. Byron did that example. He jumped. He won the race.
Yes, you would have said it, but would you have made a TikTok to the sound of jump, gone to, if William Byron had a podcast, go to his podcast, sample a clip from his podcast, and then put it on there? And then just have me go,
probably
like, guys, I just think John doesn't like Denny Hamlin.
Probably not to that level. Yeah. Because I'm not a huge fan, of course, of
Now, I'm going to say this. I probably would have done the exact same. Like, if it was my driver, if it was Josh Berry in that situation,
which he dumped Daniel Suarez. So
from one angle it looks like a dump, from another angle it looks like Suarez came down.
I will agree. I think it was more of a racing thing, to be honest, in that perspective.
What I was surprised by was that happened early in the race, and usually when something like that happens early in the race, usually it's, I don't want to say it's forgotten about by the end of the race, but it's kind of, the driver has time to cool down and that other stuff. They were mad at each other at the end of that race.
Yeah, Suarez came right up to Barry.
But then
Started complaining,
with 2 to go, Bubba Wallace, who, say what you want about Bubba Wallace, I have respect for him, for him going up to Larson
100%.
and going
100%.
Hey, that's on me.
Yeah, 100%.
If a driver can go up and do that, like even Lewis Hamilton last year at Qatar, people were blaming him, and he even said that it was George Russell's fault for the incident that happened. But then he came back, said, I rewatched it. It was my fault. That's, and so say what you want, give credit where credit's due. That guy does it. I think, honestly, with Denny Hamlin, I think he was just in the right place at the right time, had a good pit stop, and, I don't think it was like we used to see old Kyle Busch move a guy out of the way, because that I can understand. But, like this, the only reason people were mad at him was because it was Denny Hamlin, maybe, and a bit of a cheeky restart.
Yeah.
But I think the big reason that this is such a topic for conversation is because it's Denny Hamlin.
Oh, for sure. Exactly.
This would have been dead and gone by now if it was Chase Elliott.
I don't know. I would actually argue that it would be it wouldn't be more than Denny, but you have the people who absolutely, if you're not a Hendrick fan, you hate Hendrick. Like, you think they cheat, you think they are giving everything. You think
I've grown up watching Hendrick. I was a Jeff Gordon fan growing up. I was a Chase Elliott fan there for a little bit. And then, but now, obviously, I wanted to say this, cheering for Josh Berry and everything. It's kind of got a bit of a different meaning to me now.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know if you kind of picked up, but growing up watching racing, I liked Jeff Gordon because he made a cameo in Cars 2, and I loved Cars 2 growing up. And that was really the reason I cheered for Jeff Gordon. And then I cheered for Dale Jr. because I really liked Mountain Dew.
Very simple reason. I like it. Keeping it
simple. And then also I think I saw him on a can of mayonnaise at my grandma's house. But
Mountain Dew and mayonnaise, name a better combo.
Yeah, but there was that, and then it was just 2 Hendrick guys. Okay, I'll cheer for the Hendrick guys. And so then it became that, and my dad, he wanted to find someone. Well, my dad was an older dad. He had me when he was 41 years old. So everyone thought he was my grandpa, but he was actually my dad. And he decided to cheer for some of the older guys, that guy being Kevin Harvick. And with Kevin Harvick retiring, now me and Dad were cheering for the same guy. And so now the 4-car holds a more sentimental spot in my heart. Not just that Josh Berry's from Nashville, which, hey, I love having a Middle Tennessee guy in NASCAR. That's fantastic. But, it's a part of it is, and I mentioned it a little bit, with me and my dad, it was a very unexpected death. It hasn't been easy. I said, I couldn't watch the Daytona 500. I couldn't watch racing because that was something me and my dad did. Yeah. And part of the reason this podcast was put off for a little bit was because talking about racing and all this other stuff, it's kind of hard for me to do right now because and you see me in the camera, I keep kind of looking over to the photo I have here, that was our thing, every parent looks for, I don't want to speak on behalf of parents because I'm not a parent. Every parent's try and find that thing that connects them with their kids. For my dad and my brother, it was football. My dad growing up an hour north of Pittsburgh, huge Steelers fan, did that. And with me and my dad, it was working on cars. And so that sparked my interest in racing, and that's what sparked his interest in racing. And so, so the 4-car will forever have a special place in my part, no matter who drives it, unless it's Brad Keselowski.
Won't happen. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah, no. But yeah. So, back to it. With NASCAR, with this most recent race at Richmond, I think it was a good race.
Oh, great race. Race.
Started in the wet, which first points paying NASCAR race we've seen start, oval race that we've seen start in the wet. Saw Coda a few years back. And we saw the the All-Star race last year.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so going into let's look at next week. What we got? We got Dover. Next week? Martinsville. I said earlier in the podcast we have Dover. We have Dover in 2 weeks. We were talking about Dover a few days ago. That's why.
Yeah. We got Martinsville, which suits very strongly to some of the drivers we've seen as of late. I'm very curious going into Martinsville what's going to happen, because you can't look with Martinsville without looking at Denny Hamlin again. You can't look at Martinsville without looking at a Kyle Busch, a Chase Elliott, a Joey Logano. Those are always Byron. Now William Byron, of course. I think it's going to be a great race. I think it's going to be definitely one where you may see Chris Buescher, Brad Kay get in the mix as well, like we've seen. I mean, they both had great runs at Richmond. It's going to be, I think, a very similar result to last week. Watch out for Christopher Bell. He had that penalty that set him back. Arguably would have won the race with that strategy call. So yeah, we got Martinsville. So with that being said, I think it's time for, obviously, one of my favorite parts of the show. Who's your pick? Who's your pick to win at Martinsville?
You're going to like me for this. Well.
Oh, man. Don't do that to me. Don't tell me I'm going to like it and not like it, because I know exactly what you just did and then took it away from me. If it makes you feel any better, I wasn't going to pick him.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll say this. I think we're going to see a good qualifying run out of the Hendrick cars.
Sure.
I think we're going to see a really good qualifying run, but obviously qualifying is very different from the race. We've seen that a bunch this year, all right? Ford, more specifically Joey Logano, has been a qualifying machine so far this year, all right? On the front row for a bunch of races, and even other Fords. But as we've seen, qualifying is much, much different than the race. So, race-wise, let me look here. Let me look at the standings. All right, here's what I'm going to say. He hasn't made a lot of noise this year. He got a little bit of attention at COTA. But, so before I say this pick, before the podcast started, we were looking back at our picks we made for the playoffs this year. Mm-hmm. And we realized that I had actually made a pretty dumb mistake. I chose AJ Allmendinger, who isn't even a full-time driver this year.
Right.
So John let me replace that with one driver. And John, if you would like to, you're more than welcome to do it as well. You said you like your picks, though.
A driver who has not won, correct?
Yes, a driver who has not won. So I can't put Suarez in there. But I'm going to pick the guy who. But I'm going to pick the guy who I completely blew over my head when I made the list. And honestly, yeah. I gotta go with Kyle Busch. I feel like it's going to be, that's a very Chevy friendly track. Kyle Busch, we've seen in years past, he's not afraid to put his elbows out, which, is what you got to do at short tracks. And so I feel like Kyle Busch is going to be a threat to win. Yeah, that's my pick is Kyle Busch. Second pick would probably have to be Gibbs,
Interesting pick. Okay.
Yeah. All right. But yeah, what about you? Kind of do the same thing I did. What do you think for qualifying, and then what do you think for the race?
I think Hendrick obviously has a strong qualifying, system there. Obviously Logano, most poles on the year so far, tied with McDowell and Ford there. And looking at this past race, what I've seen, you could arguably say that Logano could have caught Truex And that's going to be my best pick of the week, actually. I think it's going to be Joey Logano with possibly winning this race. I think that's going to be my number one pick. And looking at some speed rankings, outside of a 23rd place speed ranking back in Martinsville in the spring of 2023, he's been the second, the ninth, and the third fastest car on Martinsville over the last 4 races. So if you do the averages of those, you're looking at 4.66. Arguably, he has been the fastest car outside of that outlier. And right behind him, you have Chase Elliott. So those are my 2 picks.
Yeah.
Logano, Chase Elliott. I think this is their time to build some momentum. Elliott, obviously a great run that he had this past week in Martinsville or at Richmond. You had Joey Logano up in the top 10, the top 5 all day. I think you're going to see both of those drivers, if not battling for a top 3, battling for a win. Logano is my pick to win. Probably my best pick this week. Looking at historical data, but a couple drivers they're going to have to beat. Denny Hamlin averaging 1.33 fastest over the last 3 Martinsville races. Ryan Blaney technically has been arguably the fastest one, averaging with an average speed ranking of 5th. And last year in Martinsville, he just kicked everybody's butt, speed ranking wise. So I'm looking at Logano. I think that's going to be my lock of the week. You're going with Kyle Busch, you said? Is that your pick?
Yeah, Kyle Busch is going to be my lock. But your picks that you made, is those also the same picks you're going to say for your bets and stuff?
Yes, I have not done my research yet, but going off of some preliminary data that I always look at, I like to see historical speed trends mixed in with previous results at these tracks, specifically the type of track. I think Richmond is a great place for Logano to get started on a trend to potentially win. So if he doesn't win, I'll make this right here, and I'll text you when this happens. Logano is going to win either this week or next. It's going to happen.
What we got next week? Yeah, we got Talladega. After Martinsville, it's Talladega.
No.
Yes.
No.
Schedule.
Talladega's.
No, wait, fuck, that's Texas. My bad. We have 2 races. It goes Texas, Dega, Dover.
My bad. Joey Logano is either going to win at Martinsville or he's going to win at Dover. I thought Dover was the next short track on the calendar after Martinsville. In order, I thought it was going to go back to back to back short tracks. I think Logano is going to win at Martinsville or he's going to win at Dover, if not both. Make that right now. That is the moment I will text you and say, "Hey, Chad, guess what? I'm right again." On that one.
The amount of text I got last year of that was insane. But
yeah.
So I think
there we go.
I think that covers all of it. Looking at the playoff standings, I got the playoff standings here. We have Hamlin, Byron, only drivers so far this year with 2. We got Larson, Bell, and Suarez, the other guys with wins. Then we have Martin Truex, Ty Gibbs, some shockers in there. Brad Keselowski, he's having some pretty good stuff. But look who's 17th in the playoff point standings. John Hunter Nemechek.
He's been very fast. So I don't know if you've noticed on short tracks, that Legacy Motor Club team is quick, very quick in that 42 car. And you saw what happened at Bristol last year with Carson Hocevar. I was at that race. Hocevar was absolutely murdering the top line, absolutely ripping it. And you're seeing great success out of that 42 bunch. If I had to make a surprise pick, also, you're going to like this one. I think Noah Gragson gets a top 10 this weekend, potentially a top 5.
I will like that. It's weird this year cheering for like Fords, because like I'm so used to cheering. Like I've always cheered for the Hendrick guys, so I was always happy whenever the Hendrick guys won.
Right.
But like this year, always doesn't matter the series, cheering for the number 10 car. Just who I am, always driven the number 10, so I'll always cheer for the number 10.
And he has sponsors. He has legit sponsors. Like, remember we were talking about that like a while back. Is Gragson going to have the same sponsor troubles that Larson did? Obviously not. You have Black Rifle Coffee Company. You have Winchester. You have Serve Pro looking like Danica Patrick out there.
Probably doing better.
Oh, doing much better. Doing much better. I actually
they didn't win, but the car. Yeah, but the car went on the trailer in one piece.
Exactly. It did, or did it? Yeah. Did it at Phoenix? Did he not get involved in anything? No, he was battling up at the front. I think he had a top 6 or top 5.
But yeah, man, I think it's Well, I think we're all caught up, and I think we'll be good for this upcoming weekend. So IndyCar. Not much, not anything happening there, but we do have Suzuka in Formula One happening at not even the ass crack of dawn, just
midnight, just midnight. Yeah.
So, I will be sleeping through that race.
I will not. I will be tuning in as I always do.
You know what? I'm going to be staying at my mom's, which we found out that you live weirdly close to my mom,
like not even weirdly close. Like I could walk to your mom's house.
Yeah,
not like wouldn't be very safe to do on a 2-lane road, but
in Antioch
can be done.
But
Nolensville, Brentwood.
You're saying Nolensville just to make yourself feel better, but
have you
live in Antioch?
Where do you live?
Lima, Ohio.
Okay. That's what I thought.
Yeah, my mom's is in there. You know what? We're gonna stop talking before we just give out our addresses on the podcast. But
I don't know what you're doing.
You know what? Since you're that close, I honestly might just stay there with you. I might just go over there and watch the race and wake up and go to the racetrack.
Leave. Yeah, I mean it's you're right there. So, but yeah, so that I think will wrap up episode 18 of the Flag to Flag podcast. Make sure to follow us on any of our social channels at Flag to Flag podcast on everywhere except Instagram. I always do this. Instagram, which is Flag to Flag _podcast. We have reached the checkered flag, so we will see you next time on the Flag to Flag podcast.
Support your local short track.
And do that too.
Yeah, I got to throw that in there, but yeah.
Got to. See ya.
See ya.